Raising kids can be a challenge, especially in this day and age. Unfortunately, we don't get a manual on how to raise our children when they're born. Each child is different, especially if you have more than one child. They all have multiple personalities and characteristics. What happens when we as parents have done all that we can do to protect, nurture, and influence our children to be the best that they can be, but they still divert from everything that we've taught them? Maybe it seems as if hope has failed. Could it be that we're expecting too much out of our children? Join me and my guest co-host, Marie North, on this episode of The Next 15. You're listening to The Next 15, a 15-minute podcast show for the binge listener, covering random topics such as relationships, current news, and everyday life issues. My name is Trey North, and for the next 15 minutes, I hope to make you laugh, educate, and inspire you. Welcome to the Next 15 podcast show. My name is Trey North, and I'm your host tonight, along with my beautiful co-host, Marie North. How are you doing?
Doing good. How are you guys doing today?
Tonight. It's not today, it's tonight. That's true. We got an interesting show. As you heard from the intro, it's talking about parent expectations. Are we expecting too much from our children? I know sometimes we raise our kids, we do our best to bring them up in the right direction, in the right way, and sometimes they don't always go the way that we think they should go. Yeah. And they get a little bit off course, or maybe they want to do something different other than what we expected them to do. Yeah. So let's talk about it. Let's deal with it right now. Let's talk. You have the floor. What's up?
Well, it's kind of like what Trevor was saying. You know, sometimes we put these certain expectations on our children, or we expect them to be certain things, and when they're not that, then it kind of feels like a letdown, or we're disappointed, or we feel like we failed. But in actuality, we haven't failed. I mean, they're their own people.
That's true.
They're their own people with their own dreams and their own aspirations. Right. And what we expect of them may not necessarily be what they expect of themselves.
That's true. I think sometimes, and not in all cases, but in some cases as parents, we try to encourage our kids to do things that we maybe didn't get a chance to do when we were their age. Yeah. So, you know, some parents live out their dreams through their children. Correct. Because of whatever the circumstance may have been or be at that point in time. And so they feel like, hey, you know, I want them to be this, or I want them to be that, because I didn't get a chance to do that. Yeah,
and I totally understand that. I mean, I had this expectation of my son and my youngest one, and he started playing basketball. I was excited for him because in high school, I was the cheerleader, and I was the one that was at the games, and I remember how much fun it was when I was in school. And so I expected him to carry on that tradition. You know, I expected him to, when he started playing basketball, I expected him to keep playing basketball and do what I did and enjoy the things that I enjoyed. But this year he decided, hey, I don't want to play basketball. I want to do something else. And so it kind of threw me, and I was like, but this is what I wanted you to do, you know, but it's not what he wanted to do. He had played the 2 years that he wanted to play, and he decided to do something else. So, I mean, they grow into different people than what we want them to grow into.
Yeah, a lot of times our kids, basically, they might feel one way one day and might be another the next day. Yeah. It's like feelings are fickle. You know, sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down, sometimes you feel like a nut, sometimes you don't. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so, you know, one day they might want to be a rapper, the next day they might want to be a skateboard, you know, or race car driver, whatever it is that they may be. But, you know, it's as parents, it's like, well, hold on just a second. Hey, Juan Alaman has joined us from the live chat. He says it's tough when they start choosing their own path.
Yeah.
That's true,
Yeah.
because unfortunately, there's nothing you can really do when they get to a certain age. You could talk till your ears fall off, till their ears fall off, but they still going to choose their own path, and that's a good point, Juan. It's just really, it's hard because you have set a bar that may or may not be too high for them.
Yeah.
Or might not be at their level of expectation. Our expectation might not be, like you said, their expectation.
Yeah.
Yeah. You had something to say?
Yeah. It's like, I kind of forgot what I was going to say, but that's okay. But it's like you expect, say you want them to grow up to be a doctor. You see all this potential in them. You know, it's like, hey, they're super smart and you should be a doctor. And that's not what they might want to be. They may want to be a manager at a supermarket, you know? And that may seem like happiness to them.
Right.
You know, but like you were saying, Juan, it is hard when they begin to choose their own path, and it might not be the right path, quote unquote, the right path, or they might have to endure some tough things on the path that they choose, or make some mistakes. And we want to help them so bad, but you know, we can't, because they have to learn from their mistakes when choosing their paths.
It's true. I mean, I think sometimes we forget they're people with their own mind, their own feelings, their own characteristics. I mean, I've been guilty as a parent of that. You know, when my kids were going through different phases of what they wanted to be in life. And it just kind of like, oh God, I was freaking out because no, you're not going to do this. You're not going to do that. No, that's not what you really want to do. And it might not be what they really want to do, but at that time, it's what they really want to do.
Yeah.
And so we have to trust. I think at that point, we have to trust our skills. We have to trust what we've put into them. A lot of times we say, or I heard your mom say to me one time, she said, children are like arrows. You have to point them in the right direction. I think as parents, if we point our kids in the right direction, then they might steer off a little bit or a lot. But I think eventually it'll come a time in their lives that they come back to that point and they start to remember things, because that's how I was as a child. My mom used to tell me a lot of things, and I'm thinking, you know, as a kid, I know it all.
Yeah.
You know, I know everything. You don't know anything. You weren't a kid. As if you weren't a kid.
That's what they think, you know, that we weren't kids.
Yeah, and it's like, well, there's really nothing new under the sun.
Yeah, or here's one. Or you were a kid a long time ago. Things have changed.
Oh, God. How many times have we heard that?
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's the circle of life. It all repeats itself. You know what I mean?
And we're no expert. We still have young ones growing up. The youngest one is 16. He's about to be 17 in April. And they're all boys, and we're still learning. I mean, it's a learning process, you know. And we make a lot of mistakes along the way. Yeah. And just like they do. So we're not exempt.
Yeah, I think in order for them to grow, because we had to do the same thing, we have to allow the human flaw or the human error to take place. Some things my mom or my aunts I didn't have my dad when I was growing up, but the people that were around me, they say it takes a village. The things that they told me, in the back of my mind, I kind of knew they were right, but I had to see for myself. And so some things I had to endure on my own, you know. In other words, I had to endure it. I went out and did it on my own, and I suffered the consequences. And then I came right back to my mom, you know, when there's a problem, because that's what kids do.
Yeah,
they go out and they want to be the big shot. They want to be the know-it-all. And as soon as they hit that hard rock, then bam, they hit it hard and they come right back to their parents.
Yeah, and we're not saying that you shouldn't expect great things from your kids. We're not saying that at all. But we're just speaking from our experiences of how to let go of some things, you know, because me personally, I've been going through emotional roller coaster, letting go of certain things that I expected from my son. And, you know, once I started letting go of some things, it took the stress off of me. You know, I was stressed out. I was emotional, still learning how to deal with that. But it takes so much pressure off, in my opinion, when you begin to not necessarily lower your expectation, but you understand that they're kids and they're people, like Trevor was saying, and you got to give them room to grow.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. You have to give them room to grow. They're coming into adulthood, you know, especially with the boys.
Yeah.
Oh God, they have these pheromones, I call them.
Pheromones and hormones.
Hormones. Yeah, their hormones are just raging, you know. Some of them get the hairs on their chests and they just think they're men.
Yeah, or, you know, and then you kind of have to treat them like little adults as well, so that they can feel that their opinion matters and how they want to live their life matters, you know.
Yeah. And one thing that I have noticed is no matter how at the time dumb we think they are, they're smarter than we give them really a lot of credit for. They play things in their heads that have happened or has been said to them in certain situations. They don't always communicate that with you though, to you though, you know, so you don't really know at times what they're thinking, or if anything that you said even mattered to them. You thought perhaps it went out one ear and gone out the other, but maybe not. Yeah. You know, it's something that seed, as we call it, that seed that you deposit into them, it's there. It might be lying dormant for a minute or two, or for a day or 2 week or 2 months or 2 years for two, but it will come back up. That teaching, that upbringing will come back up at some point in time in their lives.
Yeah, I totally agree. Even though it doesn't feel like it, you know, there we go back to feelings, you know, just because you feel like one way doesn't make it so. You know, so just because you feel like you're not doing a good job, or you feel like your kid is just veering off totally from the path that they're supposed to be on, like I said, quote unquote, supposed to be on, that doesn't necessarily mean that is what's happening. Yeah,
that's true. Our listener Juan says one of his favorite quotes is, "Knowledge isn't wisdom because you can't teach it. Everyone has to learn on their own."
Yeah.
What do you think about that quote?
Hey, I think that's a good one, and that's one that I should remember. You know, hey, that's how they learn. When they go out and make mistakes on their own, and they see, okay, if I told them to do something, tell them not to do something, they're probably going to do it. And then if they go out and do what I said not to do, and then they have a bad experience with that, then they're going to be like, okay, I see that what they're saying was right. I shouldn't have done that, and I see the consequences to what I did. You know,
so wow, this is an interesting topic. I mean, and we can go. I could go on and on about this. I know this is a 15-minute podcast. It doesn't have to be, but I like to keep it just for the binge listener. But maybe we should revisit this topic. I don't know. Maybe on another time, or go deeper than this, maybe on the next show, and talk about, you know, something that leads in, you know, into the expectations, maybe something else. You know what I mean? Yeah.
That was 15 minutes already?
It's almost 15
Shut
minutes.
Up. It felt like 5 minutes.
I know. It seemed like we just started.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. Did you have more to say? We can still go if you want to go.
I mean, hey, it's up to you whether you want to keep going or not.
Hey, this is our podcast show. So guess what? If you have something more to add, let's do this.
No, I really don't have any more to add at this moment, but I just know that, speaking from experiences lately, that this is a topic that a lot of parents may be going through. You know, sometimes we feel like we're by ourselves and raising our children, and we just have to understand that somebody else is going through the same thing that you're going through. You know, we just have to learn how to cope and how to deal with it. And that's through having conversation about it, you know. Am I talking too much?
No, I mean, I'm just saying that's just straight knowledge you're dropping. Those are gems.
Yeah.
Our listeners that are hearing this, those are straight gems.
Yeah, and my dad has helped a lot, you know, lately, to just be like, Marie, just be calm. They'll find their way. You know, as kids, we made mistakes. He's like, I've made mistakes, a lot of mistakes, and look who I am now. You know, he's a pastor of a great church, and, you know, you look at his past, you wouldn't think that he been through some of the things that he's been through. So, I mean, it's just through having conversation. I think we should have more conversation with each other about this.
That's amazing. Yeah. I think it deserves, this topic can really help somebody. I really think there's a lot of parents, especially, not just, single parents, there are a lot of single parents and it's just, I know we talk about our boys because we have 3 boys, but they're the girls too. I can't really tell you how to raise a girl because I haven't had any and I'm not a girl, but I'm pretty sure this is applicable to just any kids, whatever the gender is. There's so much that our kids deal with on a daily basis and have to deal with at school and the pressures. And I know some of the pressures is some of it is our fault. Because we do place expectations on them that may be something that they're just, and then we get into that pressure thing. And it's not coming from a place of, sometimes it's not coming from a place of, how should I say it, of us trying to live out our dreams through them. It's because we just want what's best for our kids and we want to see them do better than we have,
And then also, I think another reason why we put these expectations on our children is because we look at other parents and we may see, hey, their child is doing this. I feel this pressure that my child should be making straight A's or my child should be on the honor roll. When in turn, it really doesn't have to be like that because we have to remember our children are totally different than the other people's children. So we can't feel pressured.
That's true. Like you said with the grades, I mean, some kids are straight A's, straight A's and B's. Then you have those that are C's. Like I have boys that they hate school. I have one, he's graduated, he hated school. I mean, and if I was to put that expectation of him being an A student, oh my God, I was just trying to make sure that he finished, my oldest one, because I mean, if I had that expectation of him being an A student, I would run myself and him crazy. And I mean, it would be ridiculous.
So we have to drop expectations of ourselves as well.
That's true. I think we do. We have to have expectations of ourselves. And
don't worry about what other people think about you and how you're raising your kid, because you have to do what's best for your kid. And you know your kid more than anybody else knows your kid.
I mean, I couldn't say it any better than that. I mean, ultimately, it's tough being a parent.
Yes, it is.
And for me, it wasn't tough being a kid, but in this day and age, I think it's tougher for these kids that are growing up in this world that we live in right now. We desperately need prayer. I mean, we desperately have to pray continuously for our children. I'm not going to bring politics, but just look at what's going on right now in the world, the current state of our world. It's sad.
We gotta cut them some slack too.
I think that's why a lot of times at this point we're trying to expect more of them, because we know what we're dealing with, and a lot of things they don't see. A lot of things we don't just involve our kids on, decision makings or financial. Those are the stuff that you really don't invite your kid or give your kid, that knowledge, because you don't want to stress them out either. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. It's just like you said, maybe, we can't raise the kids all the same. Every child is different. Every child has a different expectation. And that's how we should, that's what we should expect from them, So, well, Marie, it's, we went a little bit over, but it's okay.
It's okay.
Yeah, that's good conversation, don't you think?
Very good conversation.
Hey, listen, we want to thank you guys for listening tonight. And wow, thank you so much, Juan, for your comments. I appreciate you. I want to give a shout out to Juan. He's also a fellow podcaster. He has the 80s show. If you're in love with 80s like I am and like he is, you would love his podcast show. He's also on Spreaker.com. Follow him, please do that. And then send us your suggestions or comments.
Or if you want to talk about this topic more.
Yeah. If
you have questions or comments, just hit us up.
Yeah. Well, I thank you guys for your time tonight. Thank you so much for listening to the Next 15 with Trey North and his guest co-host.
But I'm here every show.
Yeah,
almost.
She won't take the title as co-host. She wants to be guest co-host Marie North.
I want to come as I please.
She doesn't. I'm not gonna make you sign a contract or anything. Gee whiz.
Come and go as I please.
You want to come and go as you please. Well, listen. Thank you so much for listening to the Next 15 podcast show. Stay tuned right quick for these commercial announcements, and we'll see you on the Next 15.
Bye, guys.
Hey, this is Trey North. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast episode. Be sure to follow me at Next 15 Podcast on both Instagram and Facebook platforms. You can also follow me on www.spreaker.com by searching Trey North or Next 15. Subscribe to my YouTube channel at the Next 15 Podcast Show. And if you want to drop me a comment or perhaps a show suggestion, email me at next15podcast@gmail.com. That's next15podcast@gmail.com.